So I need to make a short apology before I begin this video that it's going to be one of my more informal videos, and I'm sorry I've been doing those a little more frequently, but due to various circumstances I didn't have as much time as I would like in order to make this video, which means that I don't have a very defined script. What I wanted to do with this video was, as I mentioned before, to basically sort of re-give my presentation, or at least the essential parts of my presentation that I gave at the Manhattan meetup. Thankfully, and I'm genuinely very thankful for this, Leon Vance, the fellow who invited me down there, already videotaped my presentation, and there's a link to that in the description below, so definitely check it out. But of course that left me in a bit of a pickle as to what I was going to do with this video. What I'm still going to do, I'm still going to go forward. I don't want to be redundant, and I also don't want to give new material that I didn't cover in the presentation there, because then you'd have to flip back and forth between the two of them. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to re-emphasize and basically consolidate the main points that I wanted to make and get across, and hopefully that will help to make clearer what I wanted to say in the presentation if it wasn't already done so. Now, one little thing before I begin, the blog is up, so hopefully you will enjoy that. There's a link to it in the description below, and there's also a link from my channel. The Readable Psychological Types isn't completely finished yet. Actually, it's not even near finished because it takes a long time, but I've gotten all the way through his description of extroverted thinking. Also, the fictional typings, I have 4 series that I have done, but I have not put my explanations for all of those series up yet because I haven't finished them, because it takes a fairly long amount of time to kind of run through this. So I have about all of one series and then about half of another series, and then the rest are just the types with the picture, the character's picture, and what type I think they are. So I'll be working on that as it goes forward, but I hope you still enjoy what I have on the blog. Feel free to let me know what you think about it and any suggestions you have to make it more useful to you. And I will now proceed with essentially a summary of the presentation I gave at Manhattan. Thank you very much for the support, and I hope you enjoy this. Thank you. Now, the question that I wanted to answer in the Manhattan meetup presentation was the question of why do I think typology is important. And basically the reason why I think typology is important is because I feel it provides a framework by which we can transcend our differences in worldviews, and essentially helps us to understand that, one, there are worldviews different from ours, what those worldviews are, what their strengths and weaknesses are, and therefore how we can appreciate where other people are coming from. And we are therefore not led immediately to believe that our viewpoint is superior. So there are two sort of main points that I made with that. The one is that when we hear somebody else's point of view, specifically in typology, for instance, Friedrich Nietzsche advocating what sounds to us to be evil, selfish things, the reason that it sounds to us to be evil and selfish is not because Friedrich Nietzsche is being evil and selfish, because what we're really doing is taking what Friedrich Nietzsche is saying and running it through our own mind, meta-representing it in our own mind, and saying, if I were to say that, if I were to say what Friedrich Nietzsche just said there, then that would mean that I'm an evil person. For instance, Ayn Rand wrote a book called The Virtue of Selfishness. If I were to write a book called The Virtue of Selfishness, that would mean that I'm actually defending selfishness and being a murderous brute. But Ayn Rand doesn't think like I do. So when Ayn Rand writes The Virtue of Selfishness, it doesn't mean what I think it means. There's a barrier there. So if we have no framework, we have no appreciation of that, then we'll continue to go on assuming that people like Friedrich Nietzsche and Ayn Rand are advocating selfishness, they're advocating evil. When they're not. In fact, they're giving a very useful perspective that we would agree with, but they, because of how they think, they have to say it in a different way. So that was the main point I wanted to bring up, was the idea of meta-representation, that when we hear different perspectives, we think to ourselves, if I were to say that, but the problem is that you're not the one saying it. They don't have the same processes as you. So typology helps to provide a framework to understand what the different processes are besides our own. The second reason that I think that this is important is it leads directly into, okay, if there are different preferences, it's not just for our benefit, but it's for other people's benefit. And I gave an example from the Book of Mormon, not the musical, as most of you are familiar with, but the actual religious book. And I won't read that here, I read in the presentation, but essentially there's a father figure trying to give advice to his sons, and both of the sons have different personalities, so he gives different advice to the different sons. That actually seems completely contradictory. But if he were to give only one of those advices to both sons, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't apply to both sons. Why? Because they both have different preferences of thought. Which leads to the next point, which is being on two sides of the same coin. You go down the hallway in school and you'll see one poster that says be yourself, follow your heart, and then you'll see another poster that says do the right thing, as though there's some sort of a rule, a logical rule that you should discover and follow. And they'll be both up there and they're both trying to lead us to the same thing. For instance, with my preferences, I'd go down the hallway and I'd look at one of those posters and say, that's dumb. In fact, that's not just dumb. Because of the way that I have to represent that in my consciousness, I need to take this poster down because this is going to hurt other people. When in fact it's not going to hurt other people. It's going to help people because other people think in a way that is conducive to that. In the presentation I gave, of course, one of the obvious question came up as to, okay, so what specifically can we do to change our actions in order to better present things to each other, to different personality types? And my frank answer is I actually don't quite know yet, because that's a very complicated question, but it's my opinion right now that typology makes a huge leap just in providing a way to understand it, and understand that there are different ways of thinking, so that when we encounter someone who's at loggerheads with us, we can at least have more patience because we at least understand what's going on there, and then we can move from there. So I hope that this summary is useful to you and helps to get some of the main points across, and I hope you enjoy watching the actual presentation that I gave, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.